So the nucleus and ribosomes inside of our cells are going to be responsible for all kinds of direction of what the cell is doing. So essentially the nucleus is going to be the brain of each individual cell and make sure that everything is getting done as it's supposed to be. So the nucleus is going to contain the cell's DNA, and it's going to direct all of the cell activities, including the building of any cellular components that are needed, any macromolecules, anything like that. We've talked about chromosomes before, and we'll come back and talk about that again when we talk about DNA structure and dividing DNA and replicating DNA. But we also need to think about this nucleus itself and what it's actually doing for the cell. So the nucleus is not always in the middle, okay, but it is this large structure inside the cell that's going to contain all of the DNA. So here it's labeled as chromatin. You can think about it like DNA for the moment. We'll explain what chromatin refers to later on. Around the nucleus, it has a membrane. So there is a membrane. It's a plasma membrane, just like the outside of the cell, that's going to protect the nucleus. In this case, it's double layered. You have to think about the nucleus as being a part of the cell that has to be very, very well protected. There's a lot going on in there, and if it gets damaged, we'll be in a lot of trouble. The nucleolus in the center, we'll come back and look at that more later, but we'll look at that as being a terrific point for us to start the production of proteins. These holes that you see are known as nuclear pores, and these are going to be important for protein production as well. This is actually how we will allow things like mRNA, messenger RNA, to bring information out of the nucleus from the DNA. So that will be important. Ribosomes, we mentioned to you, again associated with protein production, and they're the little yellow dots here attached to what we refer to typically as the ER, or the endoplasmic reticulum. So the one ER that has the dots, or has the ribosomes, is actually known as RER, or the rough endoplasmic reticulum, indicating that this is where we're going to have a lot of protein production done. So these ribosomes are made in the nucleolus. They're made of something known as rRNA, so it's ribosomal RNA. And they're made inside that nucleolus, inside the cell, inside the nucleus. So we have to look at cells that must produce high amounts of protein are going to have very high amounts of rRNA produced so that they can have high amounts of ribosomes produced. Because in order to make proteins, we must have ribosomes. I mentioned to you that the ribosomes on the surface of the ER, or the rough ER, were stuck there to help produce proteins. So the bound ribosomes are the ones on the surface of the rough endoplasmic reticulum, and will be responsible for making proteins that are going to be used in organelles in the cell, or packaged and shipped out of the cell. And we'll show you how that's done. Free ribosomes, still made from rRNA as usual, but these are actually floating in your cytoplasm. So floating around your cell, and their job is still to make proteins. They still make proteins, but they make proteins that are used in the cytoplasm. So location becomes very important inside your cell. When you're dealing with something so small, we have to deal with space issues a lot of the time. So here's a TEM of the bound ribosomes on the RER, or the rough ER. And you see them, they're attached to the surface. This blue line is the RER, and the ribosomes are attached. But you also see a lot of them that are just off by themselves. The ribosomes are all of the brown spots. So if you see them off by themselves, those are the free ribosomes. All of them are going to make proteins, or help to make proteins. Okay? So this is the diagram of a ribosome. It has two parts, the large subunit and the small subunit. I think it looks like a hamburger bun. When we talk about protein production later on, this will be very, very important for us to think about.